What's up, everybody? This is the after show for Monday Night Football, Falcons at Saints. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
It's Monday.
All right, guys, welcome to the after show. That's not really after the show because it's still kind of going on. That's why we have Mike with the iPad right there. He'll keep us updated. Don't worry about it. I'm Josh Rodriguez. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Josh_Rodriguez_.
I'm Jill Munroe, and you can find me on all social media at Stiletto Jill.
What about your blog?
My blog is jocksandstilettojill.com for all your sports and pop culture gossip, but we can talk about that later.
I love that. My name is Michael Rippe. You can catch me on social media at Mike Rips.
Mike, you're always looking out for Jill.
I know.
Awesome.
I appreciate that.
Both of you.
Yeah, you do.
You know,
Why
Good guy.
not?
He's a
it's
good
bonding.
guy.
We like this.
Yeah, we do. All right, well, game's still going on, but it's a high-scoring affair right now. As we speak, it's 45-32.
That's right.
Falcons.
Yeah.
Mike, can you update us what's going on so we just have a little bit of a segue into...
Yeah, we're late in the fourth quarter, about 7 minutes to go. The Saints have the ball down 13 at their own 20. So we'll keep you posted if anything changes, but it's been a high-scoring affair. I mean, 77 points already.
Yeah.
Defense is not showing up.
No. Well, except for the pick six.
Some defensive plays, but on the whole, the defense has been...
Absent.
Yeah. And... go ahead.
Well, and this game, I think, turned because New Orleans had the momentum right out the gate. It's a tough place to play, the Superdome, and it turned on their own miscue on the punt return that they botched, gave Atlanta the field position, and immediately kind of gave the momentum to Atlanta, and since then, Atlanta's been in control.
Yeah, that was one of the most awkward muff pumps I think I've ever seen in my life. For those who haven't seen it, I don't know what the name of the guy was, but he ran into his own...
Yeah, he just took him out.
Yeah, and then he got the ball.
And then he tried to get the ball.
And
fumbled it.
Yeah, he fumbled it. It was awkward. Yeah, you're right, because they were up 7-0 at that point.
They were, and the crowd was going crazy.
Yeah.
And when the Superdome is loud and the fans are into it, there's some rowdy fans, so...
Yep.
Especially tonight. I mean, 10 years after
Absolutely.
Katrina, well, not after Katrina, after the Superdome reopened and all the emotion that was filled and how the Saints took over as the pride of New Orleans and represented resiliency and all of that. So I thought, that the Saints were going to knock it out the park all the way.
We all picked the Saints. I think we
yeah,
all
we
picked them based off
did.
of emotion and how well they play at home, but... the Falcons are a dome team as well.
They are.
Their offense absolutely showed up today. No Julio, though, which is kind of awkward.
Yeah, it's been a heavy dose of the running game for Atlanta between Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman, who have both played very well.
Yeah, which is now a 1-2 punch. I know last year was a lot of Devonta, but Tevin Coleman's actually stepping it up a lot.
And this will be a big win for Atlanta because they lost the opening week, and then to win last week and this week and go 2-1. It's a big difference
they'd be the only 2-1 team in that division too.
Yeah, exactly, because Carolina and Tampa both are 1-2.
Yeah.
And the Saints would be 0-3.
Yes.
And the reason why it's important for the Falcons, just to briefly mention their upcoming schedule, they have Panthers, at the Broncos, at Seattle, then the Chargers. So, it could be really brutal for them if they don't come out of this on top, because not that I want to put any of my predictions back on it because they're so bad, but facing the Panthers and then going and facing the Broncos at home and the Seahawks, even though they're kind of dealing with injury, would be someplace that I wouldn't want to be as a Falcons fan.
That Panthers game is huge.
Yeah.
Wow, Panthers 1-2. That's kind of surprising.
It is.
So, I mean, there's really not much to talk about this game besides the fact that there's no defense.
No, there really hasn't. And both quarterbacks have been pretty good, minus Drew Brees' pick six. But, if you look at the stats, Drew Brees is 30 for 44, 331 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks.
He has 2 picks?
2 picks have been costly.
So then he just threw one. Then,
Just recently, it looks like he threw one. So Mark Ingram for the Saints.
Yes.
He's got 15 carries, 77 yards, and a touchdown.
Coming out party, welcome home.
Yeah, they started giving him the ball.
He's got a good average. He hasn't been able to get enough carries, I would say, because I think Mark Ingram is the type of running back that he gets going with the more carries that he gets. He's a workhorse.
Yes.
So you'd like to see him, if you're a Saints fan, for him to get 25 carries, and then you know that the Saints are doing well. Breeze at home, it's interesting, I guess, that Brandon Cooks hasn't been involved tonight.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, especially from a fantasy football perspective. I mean, I love fantasy football. I don't know about you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm learning. I'm evolving as such, maybe one day.
What about you, Mike? You do DraftKings?
No.
You don't do DraftKings.
I do season long, not week long.
What? DraftKings?
At least not yet. I've done DraftKings in the past. What about you guys? Tell us, have you guys done DraftKings?
Right.
Yeah, and if you do at DraftKings.com, you don't need to come in first place to cash in, which is what I love about daily fantasy sports.
Right.
The player who finished 800th in Week 1's biggest fantasy football contest took home $100.
I mean,
finishing
who could
800.
use-
What did the person that got first take home?
I mean, probably like 50,000, at least 50,000. People take home.
No, they do.
Big checks.
I've heard that DraftKings offers a $1 million contest during the week. So
Yes. Actually, this weekend, DraftKings is hosting another huge fantasy contest with over $1 million in total prizes up for grabs.
Incredible.
Look at that.
Incredible.
Sensei.
Ding.
But yeah, I personally use DraftKings. It's better than FanDuel to me too. I like it. It's just an easier app. It's easier to deal with. So don't wait. Go to DraftKings.com and now choose your players for this week's contest. Enter promo code BUZZ, B-U-Z-Z, and play for free.
I might have to
first
try it,
deposit.
because if you got a promo code, you could test it out. It's
Right.
just a day. Not that much.
Try it. I mean, you're on the panel. We
Right.
talk about fantasy football.
We do.
I know for a fact Fantasy Football Guru is probably in our chat right now.
Absolutely. What up, fantasy football guru? We love you. You always hit us with the good stuff.
But yeah, so I thought fantasy because we were talking Mark Ingram, and I have him on one of my teams, so it's nice to see him get going for once.
Right.
But yeah, so I wonder if that's going to be a theme for the Saints, starting running the ball a little more.
Well, I think that they would like that to be a theme,
Yeah.
but when they get behind, it makes it difficult to establish
Very
a running
true.
game and stick with it because, Drew Brees, he can throw the ball 50 times a game, no problem, especially on the turf at home. But you would like to see them establish Mark Ingram and just pound him, and let him do the dirty work because if that's the case, they're probably in the lead.
They were doing it in spurts tonight, even though they're not in the league. Just, kind of having him break through the defense. Probably because the defense is soft, but it was effective.
You're right. He has been effective running the ball tonight.
Yeah,
It's just it's not enough right now.
No.
And also, I think if they can establish Mark Ingram and get the defenses focused on him, that will open the passing lanes up for Drew Brees.
Right. Another thing I want to talk about is that pick six that Drew threw. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, when you have the defense that the Saints, that they have, you can't afford these type of
So
mistakes.
they don't have the defense. There's not really defense.
Right.
They have something.
My thing with the Saints is there's so much pressure on Drew and that offense to keep up with what their defense can't do, basically. So my question to you guys is, even let's just say they lose tonight, with that division being not bad, but the Falcons are 2-1 in first place. Everyone else is 1-2. Do you think they still have a shot to win a division?
Absolutely not.
No.
I mean, I didn't. To be completely honest, I didn't think the Saints had a chance coming into this season in the division.
Okay.
I like Carolina, and even the team that I like the most to contend with Carolina would be Tampa.
Okay.
And so New Orleans, to me, I think they're a fun team to watch at some points because they have some players you like to watch, and Drew Brees is a good quarterback. But I think they're in high-scoring games, but I don't think that they're a real contender to make the playoffs or even win the division.
Well, so in the same fashion, their next game's coming up. They have the Chargers this weekend. They have a bye week after that. And then it's Panthers, Chiefs, Seahawks, and 49ers. So of that, half, they could at least win half of those
Panthers,
games.
Chiefs,
But
Seahawks is a brutal
that's going to be,
three-game stretch.
those three games,
Yeah.
those three games, could really sort of tear up their season and just make it over fairly early by Halloween, really.
Well, I mean, if it looks like they're going to lose tonight, and if they don't, I mean, clearly next week is a guaranteed must-win against San Diego.
Yeah.
And if they don't get that game, then it doesn't even matter. But I mean, they got to get that game at least to get to 1-3 before the bye, and then that brutal stretch where they're gonna have to play Carolina at KC,
Right.
which is a tough place to play.
Yeah.
And Seattle.
Not looking good.
It's just a tough situation
Yeah.
for them, and especially when they don't have a defense.
Right.
They're not competitive defensively even. I mean, they've given up 45 points, and Atlanta probably could have more. Atlanta's done this without any input from Julio.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true. Flip side, Atlanta. If they win this game, they're 2-1. They lead the division. Now, like you said, you expected Tampa to come out and be, I guess, a competitor to Carolina, who's 1-2. Surprisingly,
I'm standing up with pride because who did Tampa
We'll
lose
get-
to?
they did.
They
did.
just a moment.
They did.
Back on track. Sorry.
and they're in first place too, right? The Rams are in first place.
Yes, they are.
Would you look at that?
LA,
Yes,
baby.
they are.
So, what do you see for the Falcons? Is this just an early season? I mean, last year they started off, I think, 3-0, maybe 4-0.
Atlanta was hot.
Yeah.
Atlanta's notorious actually for having good starts to the season and
then
fading down
flaming
the
out,
stretch.
yeah.
So I think I'm gonna still going to believe that that's the scenario for Atlanta until I see it not be that. But I do think that if they can establish the running game, not just with Devonta Freeman, but also Tevin Coleman, that definitely gives them extra weapons that should help. Because obviously, I think Atlanta's season comes down to Julio's health.
Okay.
If Julio stays healthy, they're a much better team, obviously. But he's oftentimes hurt and misses games, especially as the season wears on. He's gotten more hits and stuff. But if he stays healthy, and they also have Tevin Coleman to go with Devonta Freeman, now you're talking about a team that you got to really take serious.
Offensive options.
So I mean, 2-1 is a great start. We'll have to see how it continues. But obviously, these games, such as tonight against New Orleans, are the bigger games in the division. If they can, knock off Carolina, and they're playing them next week,
Yeah.
then now we're talking. I mean, a 3-1 lead. This is the time. I mean, because Dan Quinn was brought in from Seattle to, and people had high hopes for him, and it hasn't happened yet. Maybe this is the season.
Maybe. Could be.
Possible.
Especially Carolina. If they beat Carolina and they're all of a sudden they're 1-3, things could go into a tailspin very fast.
Very, very quickly.
So,
But again, I mean, I think for Atlanta, the thing is that they're known for their late season collapses, and so until they can get to the late season and not collapse and have that belief, then it's hard for me to see that.
all right. Well, sticking in the division, I mean, Mike, keep us updated on that game if you
absolutely.
can. I want to talk about Carolina's loss to Minnesota a little bit. Just do a little bit of a Sunday recap. Now, is this a product of Minnesota being good, or is this kind of like a perfect storm of the Panthers having trouble, or there's problems in Carolina mixed with, running into a decent team, or was that more of a product of, the Vikings are for real?
I think it's a mix, but
Okay.
I think that the Vikings are definitely for real, and let us know what you guys think.
And we didn't
for
expect
sure.
that at all. I mean, without
Especially-
your quarterback, without your running back, and to still be as impactful with someone like Sam Bradford. No shade, but shade. It's just
shade.
you did not expect them to be also as strong as they are on offense too. They are able to point up on the board. Their defense is doing most of the work, but it's just kind of shocking to me. The Vikings are for real.
Are they
Absolutely.
the Broncos of this year?
I think they have some similarities because they can rely on their defense to get most of
That's why I asked that
most
question.
of the tough work done, and then the offense can chip in here or there. They have they have a recipe for success. I really like Mike Zimmer, their coach.
Yeah.
He's a defensive mind, and their defense was awesome this weekend against Carolina. They won that game by themselves on defense, and even losing Adrian Peterson and Teddy Bridgewater, they look like they're probably the cream of that division, even though there is Green Bay. But right now, Minnesota has already beaten Green Bay, and now this win over Carolina. I mean, Minnesota's for real because they don't need to do too much offensively. They got a defense. Their defense is legit.
Yeah, and we're going to see them next week. I mean, we'll get into that later, but
we are
next week, Monday Night Football.
It's exciting. Finally, we're going to get a real Monday Night Football matchup.
That's going to be a good game. Do you guys have any games on Sunday that surprised you that you would like to talk about? Statement games?
Obviously, I would like to talk about the Giants versus Redskins. That was hard. I picked the Giants. Yes. Wrong again. Although my prediction that Odell Beckham would personally have a great game, and also his personal fouls, he was pretty good with that till the second half. I'm kind of confused with what's going on with the Giants because their defense started off so strongly, and then yesterday it's kind of just like, what happened? What fell apart? Frustrating. Clearly, that's how you get hit in the head with a net, when you're that frustrated. I'm just wondering, is it internal? Because I don't really also feel like the Redskins were that strong yesterday.
Right.
I feel like it was more the Giants. They say, did this team win or did one team lose? I felt like the Giants lost that game, not that the Redskins won.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Giant fan, so I might be a little biased, but I do feel like the Giants looked like the better team for most of the game. I think the game changed on that fake punt. I don't know if you saw that.
The penalty.
Yeah, that too. Just, I don't know. And then Eli's interception at the end was just weird.
Well, for me, it was. It seemed like neither team wanted to win the game.
Yeah,
actually.
they're just both trying to lose.
But the one thing I would say about Odell Beckham is if he's going to be the leader for the Giants and a young star in the NFL, he's got to be able to keep his composure.
Yeah.
Because your team, and most teams, they take after their leaders. So if your leaders are rattled, if your leaders are acting up on the sidelines, then the rest of the team is going to act sort of in that fashion. And if Odell is going to have hissy fits and tantrums on the side and argue with the net and whatnot, then that's not going to be helpful for the team.
With the net.
You know what I mean?
Do you feel that way even though he is producing on the field? Like, clearly he is putting in work, when he's in game. Obviously his attitude, he needs to mature, it's not, really...
He's definitely producing on the field. He's a great wide receiver, but at the same time, he's creating a distraction for his team. I mean, his coach just came out today and said that he needs to better be able to control himself. Eli Manning kind of threw him under the bus a little bit.
Yeah, did you see him grab the back of his jersey and kind of...
I've never seen Eli do that before.
It's just a thing. It's more like you have to do it for the team to see, because your team is going to take after your leader, and he's the leader on that team, and he's young. And there's other young wide receivers like Sterling Shepard who looks amazing. You don't want to set the wrong example, and these things filter out into the other guys.
Do you think that we'll see Odell get suspended because he's right there on the verge? Do you think he's going to be able to pull it?
But it's a fair question to wonder if there will be a game this season, because if he keeps having his sideline antics or antics on the field, whatnot, it would be something that's possible. In fact, it's interesting to note that this was the first time we saw someone ejected from a game for the unsportsmanlike penalties. There was 2 of them, and it was huge for the Giants. That was a huge point of the game, a turning point, in fact, losing I forget his name right now, but that may have played a key role in them losing that game.
Yeah.
So I'm not, that's not necessarily Odell's fault, but I think as a Giants fan, that's what you got to be concerned with, because you don't have to be concerned with Odell on the field. He's a great player, one of the best. I mean, he's setting records for how quickly he's gotten to some of these wide receiver records in his first X amount of games. But you got to worry about the rest, the maturity level, and hoping that comes around sooner than later.
Yeah, and with that loss, the Giants go to 2-1. Redskins are 1-2, and the Eagles, who personally I have to show some love to, because I think I kind of doubted them last week when we talked about them. But they put a hurting on the Steelers, and now they're all alone 3-0.
Yeah, after
it's safe to say they're for real, right? I mean, you pretty much have to say
after this weekend's battle of Pennsylvania, which wasn't much of a battle for me.
Right.
I'm looking at the Eagles as the top team in the NFC East right now, because Carson Wentz has not looked like a rookie at all. I mean, he looks like a 10-year veteran the way he's playing, some of the throws that he's making, and the composure, and he still hasn't thrown an interception. He's leading that team, and their defense looks really good. So it's not just Carson Wentz. I mean, they forget the Carson Wentz part of the game against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's offense is incredible, and Philadelphia completely shut down the Pittsburgh offense.
3 points.
3 points, which is really, really impressive.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider, to juxtapose what, Antonio Brown, just what they've been doing offensively so far just this season.
And Devonta Freeman's having himself a night. He's just got a nice run inside the 5. He's got 14 carries for 153 yards tonight.
Ooh.
5 catches for 55 yards. Reception
Less than 2 minutes
receiving
left.
TD. So Atlanta's about to put in another score unless they kneel. But, getting back to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Philly's the truth.
Philly.
Celebrate with a cheesesteak.
But I want to just put a wrap on the Giants-Redskins game, because not only that game was there for the Giants to take, and that game was huge, not just because the Giants lost, but the Giants kind of kept Washington alive. Washington would have been 0-3.
Yes.
Instead, they're 1-2, and that victory over the Giants can come back later in the season in a head-to-head tiebreaker. That really was big. And then Dallas is kind of under the radar at 2-1. Getting through everything. Dak Prescott looks pretty good.
He's
Elliott
equally
looked good.
Elliott looked good. And Dak, to me, is equally as impressive as Carson, to be honest with you. His stats aren't there yet because he hasn't really thrown. I mean, he threw his first touchdown pass last week, but he looks calm.
He does.
Poised. He's leading that offense. They say that Romo's going to get his job back when he comes back. But, I mean, if Dak plays like this and they're, say, 5-2 or whatever, 6-2, what do? Do you keep Dak in?
I think Romo's getting his job back regardless, but I think that he could get injured so quickly again.
I mean, he will.
So it's
Just
not,
calling it.
He will.
It's
if
very
he makes
possible.
it back. I mean, I also am not. I know that they say I'm not confident that he makes it back this season. I know they said maybe around week 10, week 12, he could come back in just to stave them off. But I don't see a purpose behind it. I think that it's time for Dallas, if they really want to be taken seriously, they have some good young pieces, and they need to start moving in that direction.
Okay.
And I don't think that Romo start. I mean, I know who he is. I'm not disrespecting what he's done, but I think it's time to look to the future with him.
So the Romo era is over.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So just to conclude on tonight's game, that's a final.
It's a final?
It's a final from New Orleans, 45-32.
45-32. Do you have the stats in front of you, or you just
No,
put it away?
I mean, we pretty much gave them, but
Yeah.
we can get them out in a second on the wrap up. But just to touch on the Tony Romo point, there's no guarantee that he'll make it back. He could get injured in practice again. I think that while Dak Prescott is the future, Jerry Jones, he loves Tony Romo.
He does.
And
He
so that plays a part in it. And I think Jason Garrett loves Tony Romo. So I think that
Or Jason Garrett does what he's told to do.
that's
with
also
his-
that's also true. So
No
I
shit.
definitely think Tony Romo is going to come back to the team and get his job back. But again, I don't know if he'll keep it the whole season because he could get injured again quickly. I mean, when Romo plays, Romo's really good. For me, and this is something that I don't see as likely, I would like to see Tony Romo get traded to the Los Angeles Rams.
Look at that.
We do.
That's
The 2-1
need-
first place
it's
Los
just-
Angeles Rams.
I mean,
one of
our
those things I
offense
would
came
like to
on
see.
yesterday. Our offense did come
Let's
on.
talk about them for a little bit.
We can go to the Rams, yeah.
Let's
Wanna
go to
talk
the
about
Rams.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I just want to say we finally scored a touchdown, and then another,
Scored a
and then
couple,
another.
yeah.
Our
Todd
offense was
Gurley.
on. It was
Yeah.
very. I mean, I don't know what's been going on with Todd Gurley the other games. I know that they're,
They're
we
stacking
have,
the box. They're
Yeah.
yeah.
I know that we have our QB issues. I don't really understand, the strategy behind that, but
Okay.
I'm gonna roll with it. But I'm slightly impressed. I'm not getting ahead of myself, but I do think that there is something there for them to build on. And unfortunately, I don't have their schedule with me. I should know this, but it's gonna get a little rough. But I think that we won't be as unhappy as St. Louis Rams
So
fans.
the
when it's said and done.
next weekend, the Rams are at Arizona.
And then
Who's
it's the
not
Bills
looking
after
And they're
that.
back
yeah.
home for the Buffalo.
Arizona's really surprising me this year. and how-
Arizona's struggled out of the gate, losing in
Yeah.
Buffalo.
It's not what
Yeah.
I
That was,
expected
that
from
was
them at all.
surprising.
I
But
thought they were going to smash Buffalo.
of course, I think most of the people
Yeah.
did. I think the one thing we also just should remember is that it is early in the season, and sometimes there's teams that lose early and then they turn it
it
around.
on.
I mean, I can think about the Patriots. Was it last year when they were 2-2? They had gotten blown out to Kansas City on Monday
And
Night
everyone
Football.
thought the Brady era was over.
And before you know it, they're back in the Super
Yeah.
Bowl as a champ. So it's just one of those things. It's early.
Well, a quarter of the season's also almost gone.
Almost
this
gone.
week.
Well, I think
Thursday we start week
I like
4.
to. Yeah, well, I'd like to make some more snap judgments after week 4 and we get a quarter of the way done
Okay.
before we jump too early.
Right.
Because still 3 games, there's still time. Unless you're 0-3, you're still in it to a degree.
To a degree, but what are the stats of an 0-3 team making the playoffs?
Probably pretty
Done.
terrible.
They're
because
done, yeah.
0-2, you're looking at like
What were the Chiefs
14%.
Last year, the Chiefs they won 10 straight to
The Chiefs, I think, started like 1-5.
Yeah.
And then they ended maybe 10-6.
something like that.
It was
something
something
ridiculous.
like
they won like 10 in a row to end the season. Something crazy like that.
finished strong.
Yeah. Speaking of the Chiefs, they blew out the Jets.
They did. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick looked awful.
Was it six
interceptions? And he was all off season trying to get that big contract. Now we know why he didn't get it.
And it's sad, the Patriots don't have Brady, and the AFC East just cannot capitalize on it. Most part because the Patriots won't lose, but there's teams like the Jets, the Bills, the Dolphins, they just can't get their act together. They just can't do it. What are your thoughts on the AFC East? Is it just the Patriots, everybody else?
Absolutely.
Any playoff teams from the AFC East that you see?
No.
I was high on the Jets coming in. I thought they could replicate what they did last year with their 10-6 record.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Jets are definitely contenders, but I think if you look around the AFC, that after the Patriots, I mean, the Patriots are clearly the cream of the crop, and not just the AFC East, but the AFC. You're looking around the league, and I think that you probably can find 2 other teams that will be the wild card teams over the Jets.
Yeah.
Especially with the way that the Jets looked this past weekend, and they're 1-2, and they still have 2 games with the Pats. I mean, for me, I'm not a big Ryan Fitzpatrick fan. I like a lot of the other players on the Jets team. I'm worried about Forte staying healthy all season. So I just think that there's too many variables that will hinder the Jets making a serious run at getting into the playoffs, especially because you look around the AFC. You got the AFC North with the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Steelers.
Right.
I like at least one extra team from there getting
Right.
into the playoffs.
And the
as
Bengals already beat the Jets, so if there's a tiebreaker
Exactly.
situation.
I like one of the teams from there at least as a wild card out of those 3, if not 2 extra teams from there. And if not, you can go to the AFC West, and you've got Denver, Oakland, and Kansas City. And I like a team from there as a stronger contender to get into
Right.
the playoffs than the Jets. So we'll have to see, though. The Jets were there right at the end last year and then lost in Week 17. You never know.
True. That
Are
is
you guys
true.
impressed with the Raiders, with what Oakland's managed to do this season? Sort of.
Well, I've had high expectations for Oakland, so I mean,
They're still. they
their
just,
defense isn't as good as I thought it'd be.
It's early, and we just need to see
Yeah.
consistency from the Raiders because
Yeah.
the Raiders they'll surprise you one week and then surprise you
have
the next week on the
moments.
flip
Yeah.
side. So you want to see them win back-to-back games and keep
Yeah.
and be consistent and win the games they're supposed to win because they lost last week at home. They lost Atlanta at home. That
Yes.
was the game everyone thought, okay, now Oakland can take that step. They should win this game, and then they lose it. Then they go win this week against Tennessee.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see.
And they're 2-1, tied with the Chiefs and who's up?
Denver's 3-0.
Yeah, that's right. Denver's 3-0, Chiefs 2-1, Oakland 2-1, and San Diego is 1-2. San Diego does not look good.
San Diego. That's why they can stand San Diego. That's why they can't make the move.
That's going to be the most interesting story for San Diego as we get closer towards the end of the season is what San Diego is going
right.
to do because no one's really talking about it, but they
Not
could
at all.
still come up to LA as that second team here, and there hasn't been any word that they're going to stay in San Diego, any progress on a stadium. So I think as their season spirals, that's going to become the big talk
Right.
about the Chargers.
And then Denver with a huge victory yesterday in Cincinnati.
Trevor Siemian looked amazing.
Simeon looked. I mean, if he plays like this,
I mean, he played better than any Peyton Manning game last
that's
season.
what I'm saying. Like, it's an upgrade from the quarterback they had last year. They're scary. They can win it again, and I think people are starting to realize that because no one was talking about Denver repeating.
No,
At all.
I was looking for a bigger fall off than we've seen so far. I don't want to anoint Trevor Siemian yet, but
Right.
it does look like they're in good hands.
Yeah.
In Denver, 3-0.
3-0.
And also, it looks like they were smart to let Brock Osweiler go and not pay him all that money.
Yep.
So John Elway looks like he's been making all the right decisions, and Von Miller has looked really good so far this season.
Yeah.
Along with the rest of the guys, their defense obviously is really good. So
I haven't caught any Baltimore Ravens games. Have you?
I have not because wait, one thing, Steve Smith Senior's battle yesterday with
Jalen Ramsey.
yes.
Get into. I don't know.
So they were, on field, trash talk. Steve Smith, we know he is a master, not only trash talker, but back that up. After the game, I guess he, spoke to him, see me. And he said that Jalen had nothing to say. But when Jalen got into the locker room, he had a lot to say about the old man challenging him. And he needs to kind of accept that he's old now and he's the future. And so Steve Smith said that and when he was asked about it this morning, he appeared on Mike and Mike on ESPN, and he basically said that Jalen had none of that to say when he stepped to him, and he should learn his place. It's interesting because, obviously, Jalen did take it to Steve on field. Steve, held his own, but there is going to be a drop off. How old is Steve Smith? now?
37.
And he was going to
35.
retire too, but he came back because he got injured. He didn't want to end his career like that.
But do you think, and this is a little off subject, but do you think with young players stepping up, coming up, do you think that respect factor always has to be there, or that's who they're supposed to be? Jalen is having a pretty good season. I know it's early, but he's establishing himself. So should he have backed down? Is he being disrespectful coming at Steve like that?
It's a tough question.
I think I would stay out of the way of Steve Smith. I don't know. He's like an ultimate trash talker, Steve Smith.
Yeah.
Trash talker, then I'm going to come back it
See,
up.
but my thing is, if you say something to me, I'm going to say something back to you. I don't care who you are.
Right.
Of course, I agree with that for sure. But it seemed like, from what I understood, that it was just something that I guess they were trash talking each other during the game, and then Steve Smith put out a tweet after the game saying, "Young man," because I guess Jalen Ramsey was talking in the post game, about it, but not on
but
the
he
field.
was going in to reporters. He was just like, "You're done. You're old. You had your time."
Yeah, but Steve Smith had a good game. I think he caught 8 balls for 89 yards.
I think it was just what was that play? It was that one play really where Jalen kind of not embarrassed him, but just he had him looking a half a step slower.
I just think that Jalen, he seems like he's gonna have a good career. He's super young. He's just. I just don't worry about Steve Smith. Plus, he's like, Steve Smith, he seems like the kind of guy, just stay away from him. He's so dangerous.
Tick.
Yeah. Well,
like, he'll fight you on the field.
oh my goodness, yeah.
So,
He has a temper.
yeah.
But more importantly, before we get into news and gossip that you have, the Ravens are 3-0.
3-0. But I think that's a little bit of a disguise.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
It's a little deceptive. 'cause
Their victories haven't been really convincing. They had to come back against a bad Browns team, and then the
Who
first
cares about Jacksonville?
Jacksonville. I had high hopes for Jacksonville this year.
Agreed. But also,
Yes, Bortles, I thought was going to turn the corner. He looked good last year.
What corner?
The corner of I wouldn't say top tier QB, but like that next tier. I thought he would enter into that realm. You have Julius Thomas healthy. Allen Robinson's one of the best wide receivers in the league, young wide receivers. Allen Hurns is a nice secondary complement. That offense should be clicking. And then they bolster up the defense a little bit. I thought they'd be pretty good this year.
Well, I think you got to look right at the coaching first. But before we close up the Baltimore point, they're 3-0. They won on they won on a late field goal.
Yes.
This weekend, 53-yarder from Justin Tucker. So he's been amazing. And John Harbaugh is a great coach.
Yeah.
Even with not that much talent on that team, they get it done.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be in the playoff picture, but I don't believe in them.
Aren't they always in the playoff
They are,
picture? Though?
because John Harbaugh
Yeah.
is a great coach, so I think he'll always have them prepared, and they're going to win games dirty and ugly and be relevant throughout the season, but I don't actually believe in them as a serious contender.
Yeah, and it's unfair of me to say I don't believe in them because I actually haven't seen a single second of them play. I'm just strictly based. I'm going off of just my preconceived notions of what they would be this year.
They haven't been that exciting.
Yeah.
They've had a couple long bombs to Mike Wallace, who's been a nice addition for them, and then just kind of grinding it out. But on the flip side, you guys were talking about Jacksonville. I think the one place you got to look for Jacksonville is to the head coach.
Okay.
And that's Gus Bradley, and he's been atrocious as the head coach, and everyone keeps waiting year in, year out for Jacksonville to be good, and it just doesn't happen. And I think you're looking at Gus Bradley, and you got to say, all right, well, we might need to make a change at the top.
But you don't even hear anything about that. I don't feel like there's being any critiques aimed at coaching. I feel that all the fixes have just been, well, what we need to do. Obviously on the field is more important, but they're not looking at the other side of it and how those pieces that they're acquiring are being used.
Right. Not yet, at least. I mean,
They've got a lot of young talent on the team, and I'd say that I think that Gus Bradley is not going to make it past the season.
oh, absolutely. If they're playing like this,
way they
absolutely
are.
not.
I mean, 'cause-
especially the expectations they have for this offense.
And additionally, I think that Blake Bortles is going to come under scrutiny now because everyone's been waiting for him now as well to turn it around. And he did have some nice moments last season, especially fantasy-wise.
Yeah.
He's put up big numbers, but a lot of that came late when they were on the comeback.
Right.
So it was kind of a fake numbers, not putting up the numbers when it mattered, but getting a lot of stats, not victories. And so I think Blake Bortles and Gus Bradley are going to have to pay for the issues in Jacksonville if they don't turn it around. So they're on the hot seat.
Yeah, I agree. So, Jill, I know you got some news and gossip. Let's get
Just
into
really
it.
small. So we know.
AfterBuzz TV News.
Nice.
Hey, like that. So we know that there were the issues and concerns about the game with Charlotte and the Vikings on Sunday, and Cam Newton has been sort of waffling on exactly what his stance was. He stepped out on field with a black T-shirt with an MLK quote, "Injustice against one." I'm blanking on it, and I just jacked that up, and I know it, but you guys look it up.
I think injustice against one
is injustice against all.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. And
good
so. It's a great quote, but does it mean anything when Cam has sort of been back and forth as far as the conversation as to where he really stands? I think he's confused. I think he's young and he doesn't want to mess up his endorsements, but he does feel a type of way. I think it might be a good idea for him to sit this one out. I know it's hard, but I think it's okay to not want to stand up politically necessarily, especially considering when you look back at last season, how everyone defended Cam when they felt that he was being attacked because of his race, and now it's kind of confusing for people and the hire. So my more further concern when we go into Cam's fashion choices, or not the pregame, is have you guys been looking at what he's been wearing postgame and his top hat?
What was he wearing? I saw yesterday, but his shirt was more ridiculous to me.
Yeah, so is it a deflection? Cam is also, he may not be lighting it up on field, but he is also expecting baby number 2.
Oh, I know
His
that.
fiance is pregnant, Kia, and he's looking at a new winter baby to join his son, Chosen.
Congrats, Cam.
So,
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I love this news and gossip set.
that's it.
Good stuff.
That's it for news and gossip.
All right.
All right, guys. Well,
That's nice.
so I guess we'll get into predictions too for next Monday night's game. We got the Vikings. Is it in Minnesota? I think it's in Minnesota, right? Josh, you should know this. Well, Giants Vikings.
Giants Vikings next Monday night. huh?
That's gonna be a game.
It's going to be a great
You got the
game.
Giants coming in at 2-1. Vikings are 3-0. Last year, as a Giants fan, I remember the Giants getting absolutely smoked against the Vikings. So I have kind of like bad memories when it comes to the Vikings.
It's in Minnesota.
It's in Minnesota, which is not good for the Giants in my mind. So what do you guys expect?
Next week will be my bye week. I know you guys don't miss me. The Vikings are obviously the truth, but my gut is just go with the Giants. I don't know why, but my gut is for the Giants. I feel like they're going to come back off of this loss against the Redskins. I think that they're going to look internally and sort of know that they let it slip away, and I think they're going to be ready. I think that they have enough offensive weapons that they can, break down Minnesota's defense. So
Okay, Mike.
I like that breakdown.
There you go.
I'm going to take the Vikings. They're home, but I definitely think it's going to be an exciting game. I'm excited to see how the offense of the Giants can compete with the Vikings defense. I think that's going to be a really great matchup because there's talent on both sides there. I really, really like the Giants' offensive duo of Odell Beckham and Sterling Shepard. I'm a huge fan of their rookie Sterling Shepard. He's already a playmaker for the Giants, so having him and Victor Cruz, those three going against a secondary from Minnesota that's experienced and talented, and an entire defense that's really good is going to be exciting. I think that the crowd is going to be really fired up. I mean, it's a new stadium. It's in Minnesota. They're rolling. Mike Zimmer is a defensive specialist. Ben McAdoo, he's an offensive guy, so it's going to be interesting to see the chess match between the two coaches. But I'm going to stick with Minnesota as the home team to get it done. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Giants won.
Okay, I'm going to go with Minnesota as well, but I do think this game is going to tell us a lot about McAdoo as a coach and how the team responds to a loss.
That's a great point.
Like they did against the Redskins. I just think that the defense is too good, and the Giants, as good as the offense as they are, they turn the ball over a lot.
They do.
And Minnesota, I mean, what they did to Cam, they made Cam look like...
and they did that in Carolina.
Yeah.
They totally took over that game in the second half, which is super impressive. And so that's the overwhelming thing. As good as I think the Giants are offensively, it's like I can't get that Minnesota Vikings defense performance out of my head to think like that. I think that's the most dominant part.
That's what I'm thinking as well. I think Bradford will make enough plays, Diggs. Jerick McKinnon, I think, is going to have a big game. The Giants don't do too well with
I still don't
halfbacks.
believe in Sam Bradford. I watched him when he was with St. Louis. I can't get those memories out of my head. Philly, whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the thing about Sam Bradford is they just don't have to ask him to do too much.
Just do enough.
If
That's
they just
really
hand
all
the
it is.
ball off, make a play here or there, and that should be enough. But I agree with you because I'm not a big believer in Sam Bradford myself. But if they're not asking him to do too much, could be the answer to the success of the Minnesota Vikings. I think you make a great point, Josh, about Ben McAdoo, though, to see how the team responds. I want to see that, too, because I don't know much about him outside of his year of tutelage under Tom Coughlin, and now he kind of gets to see, and we get to see his ability to lead and be in control of the Giants. So it will be interesting, but I think that the Giants can, even if they lose the game, I'm not necessarily sure that's that I think if you were going to look at the schedule before the season, you would be okay with that one as a loss on the road Monday night at a good Minnesota team. You could expect that it's a tough one. So they could respond really well, the Giants, and play a great game and still lose, and you still could come out as a fan and be like, okay, we've still got something going this season.
But I would feel a lot better if they didn't lose against the Redskins.
Yeah.
Of course, it makes it more difficult, but I have been impressed with the Giants' defense. The additions that they made, they look a lot better. So the Giants definitely are. They have talent on both sides of the ball, and it will be exactly what you said, a big, interesting moment to see how Ben McAdoo does as the head coach and the response that the team gives him.
All right, well, that pretty much does it, guys. We wrapped up all Sunday, Monday Night Football. Once again, the Saints Saints lose. We were
Saints
all
lose.
wrong.
We were all wrong.
So far, I have been wrong each week.
Damn.
So just for the record, I picked the Vikings next week. So
Vikings, Giants, Vikings. So one of us, at least, is guaranteed.
So I need you guys to hold me down when I'm right next Monday
I
in
hope-
my absence.
I hope
okay?
you're right. I hope you're right. I really hope you're right. But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm just hoping for a good game, too, to be honest with you guys.
Of course.
So, guys, thanks for joining us. The Falcons defeat the Saints 45-32. Next week we have the New York Giants at the Minnesota Vikings. I am Josh Rodriguez. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Josh_Rodriguez_.
I'm Jill Munroe. You can find me at Stiletto Jill on all social media and JacksonStilettoJill.com, like Mike told you.
Yeah. And I'm Michael Rippe. You can find me all over social media at Mike Rips, and let us know in the comments and all week on social media anything you want to see on the show, and we'll see you next week.
All right, take care.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.